Because
welcome into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator, west of the 51st state, Greenland, and south of the 52nd state, Canada. It's the first time we have been at Wells Fargo Center doing this show since December 21st of 2024. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. How are you, Adam Kimmelman?
I'm good. I'm happy to be back in Philadelphia. I was in Ottawa at the World Junior Championship for the last 2 weeks. I came home yesterday, and I am here ready for NHL hockey after 2 weeks of junior hockey. So should be a fun one tonight.
I just want to give everybody an update here. It is not a sad or particularly awful update. It's not a great update, but it's not a bad one. Ant is not dead. He is sick. He is not here. I don't believe we are at Anthony on death's door with COVID like a few years ago. But if you want to send your best wishes to him, feel free. I believe he is in the comfort of his own home. I'm assuming he's probably trying to get extra sympathy out of Maria, maybe to get her to make some delicious chicken cutlets tonight. But
as one should.
Absolutely. This is part of married life. Anyway, he'll be back presumably on Thursday. Bundy's over doing pregame radio. He'll be joining us in a bit. Intern Andrew's here. We have a second intern who'll be showing up in the first intermission as well. But Adam, tonight, second half of a home-and-home, Flyers and Maple Leafs. We're going to get into the game. But you mentioned that you've been out of town covering World Juniors. The U.S., spoiler alert, gold medal.
Sorry for anyone who had the game on DVR or waiting to watch it.
We're going to talk about that later in the game.
Wait, you knew about that?
Well, Intern Andrew and Bundy went to war a couple days ago, but we'll get there later on in the Press Row Show today. But Adam, I think a lot of people who might have missed it or didn't get to watch as many games are curious about what the Flyers prospects looked like in the tournament. Can you kind of give folks an overview of what some of the more highly touted prospects, if there's anybody that, Cutter Gauthier had a goal in the first game, right? And then played the fewest minutes of anybody, any forward on Canada, or at least in a couple of games. Give people an update on how
they had four prospects there, three on Canada: Jet Luchenko, Oliver Bonk, and Carson Bjarnason. Carson Bjarnason was the third goalie. Excuse me, unfortunately, he didn't play. Jet Luchenko scored a brilliant shorthanded goal, really showcased his speed, did a nice job as a penalty killer. I don't think he got enough ice time to really showcase himself, but when he did, he was a real standout. And Oliver Bonk, and there's been a lot said about Canada and some coaching decisions, some roster management decisions, and Oliver Bonk was a really great example of that, because for the first two games, they had him at the point on the power play, and around here, we know the nickname Bumper Bonk. It has meaning to it, and apparently maybe Hockey Canada didn't get that memo because they had him at the point on the power play. Meanwhile, he doesn't play the point on the power play in London. One of his teammates does, Sam Dickinson, and Sam Dickinson was sitting on the bench watching while Canada's power play was not doing well. They moved Bonk to the bumper for the third game, and on their very first power play, Oliver Bonk scored from the bumper position. If you want to know why Canada went out in the quarterfinal round for the second straight year, that really is the perfect example of why. I think the kids on that team, not just the Flyers process, I think a lot of kids on that Canadian team played as well as they could under, a team that maybe wasn't particularly well coached, a team that had some roster issues. I think the issues that Canada had were far from the locker room. They were more higher up the food chain. The only other prospect was there.
Let me stop you there, just on the can. A lot of times, fans like to blame coaches. It's just the thing that fans do. You watch more hockey than just about anybody this side of the Mississippi, and maybe on the other side as well. How fair are the coaching critiques coming out of World Juniors this year?
100% deserving. And I talked about it with Bonk. One of the other things that Dave Cameron was the coach of that team. He said we need to get more. Our forwards need to get more inside, get more to the net. Their biggest forward was Porter Martone, the 2025 draft prospect, who was scratched for 3 games. He's at 6'3" and 200 pounds. He plays a game. Scouts have variously compared him to Corey Perry, Matthew Tkachuk. I think I might have heard Brady Tkachuk's name thrown in there, but that's the sort of vibe you get from him, right? At the time, he was second in the league, second in the Ontario Hockey League in scoring. So he's not just a big bruising guy. He's a big bruising guy who can play. And you had him in the press box when you were also saying we need to get more on the inside and take goalies' eyes away from him. So when Porter Martone goes back in the lineup, the very first thing he does, get to the front of the net, score a goal. So when you're wondering about coaching, that's best I can say.
Why does that happen? Is it just a thing where, especially at junior, maybe more so than like at the Olympics or something, you have a coach who has a bunch of young players, and is it just that the coach thinks that he knows better than every other coach who's been coaching these players that gets them into a successful enough position to be considered for World Juniors? Like, why does that happen? It seems insane that you would play these guys out of position. Is it really just an ego trip?
I don't think it's an ego trip. I think some of it is when you coach at that level, and I'll just use Dave Cameron as an example. Dave Cameron coaches the Ontario League. He knows the Ontario Hockey League players better. Now, I don't know if that's quite the answer when it comes to not knowing how best to use Porter Martone, who also plays the Ontario Hockey League for Brampton, or Oliver Bonk, who plays the Ontario Hockey League for London. He's coached against both of those kids before. I can't really explain some of the decisions that were made. It was confusing. It was curious at best, and not necessarily a surprise that they lose to Latvia in the shootout, which is a huge, maybe the biggest upset in 49 years of World Junior history. And it's not a surprise that they go out in the quarterfinals for the second straight year because of, these kind of situations. This is a different group, it's a different team. It's hard to compare year on year, but it was very obvious to see where their deficiencies were behind the bench and in management.
Okay, so those were the three. You touched on all three of the Flyers prospects for Canada. And there was one more.
Heikki Rahonen, who played for Finland, who, the Finns had a very good team, but they're never going to be a team that wows you with all their high-end offensive skill. But when utilized, he was really, really strong, very physical in a bottom six role. I think the best comparison I can make with the Rahonen is if you took all the good defensive elements from Sean Couturier's game, the size, the strength, the smarts, I think that's what you have in Heikki Rahonen. I don't know if he's going to develop the offensive game as Couturier has, where he's a two-time 30-goal scorer, but I think if you're looking at and projecting down the road how he could eventually help the Flyers as a third-line, fourth-line center, I think he's in that running. I think he could be that guy, maybe, and I'm talking 3-4 years from now, because he's still only 18. I don't think he's turned 19 yet. So you're projecting to the future with him. The only other player who should have been in that tournament that wasn't, unfortunately, was Jack Berglund, the center from Sweden. Broke a finger on his hand in the last pre-tournament game. Yeah. Unfortunately, he had to miss the tournament. He's going to be out 5 weeks, had surgery. But he was a guy that, going back to the summer showcase, really stood out for me from an offensive standpoint that maybe I wasn't expecting, because he's such a big, strong kid, much like Rahonen, but he knows how to get to the front end of the offensive zone, and he is an immovable object when he got there. He was fantastic, and I thought he would be – we did our pre-tournament predictions on NHL.com, and we were looking for a surprise standout player. I originally had Jack Berglund, and I very quickly had to change it when he got hurt. So –
how big of a role do you think he would have played for them had he not gotten hurt?
I think he would have been the second or third line center, but I think they would have utilized him in a different way than Finland did with Rahonen, where he was more of a penalty killer. I think they would have found a power play spot for Berglund because of his size, because of his strength.
There's one other name that came out of World Juniors that had to do with the Flyers. At least it had to do with a lot of Flyers fans who are trying to look ahead to, all right, love or hate John Tortorella, he's not the youngest coach in the league. This team has tried once before to go after a college coach. It didn't work out particularly well. But Dave Carl's name has come out a lot, at least among Flyers fans. And I think pretty much any fan base in the National Hockey League that looks at the long term. Is there any chance, maybe not just the Flyers, is there any chance that after back-to-back gold medals, is there a chance that an NHL team could look to woo him to the NHL, or do you think that it's a hard transition and it doesn't usually work out? Like, where do you think that front offices are landing on it right now?
I think I would have to guess that he was front of mind before this, going back to last year's World Juniors and an NCAA championship. He's got 2 NCAA titles. Yeah. He's got 2 gold medals. So I think he's been on the radar long before now. I think what you have is a young guy.
35?
Let's see. He was 2008 draft, and that
was 35.
That sounds about right. But he's got a couple of young kids, and he's in a very, very comfortable position. And one of the benefits that come with being a successful college hockey coach is job security. Yeah. It's not often, and again, that could change as we're entering a whole new world of college sports where the expectations are through the roof with NIL and all, and now you can kind of pull from the Canadian Hockey League clubs and guys like Michael Mesa or Porter Martone that we talked about, or Gavin McKenna. You hear their names mentioned as, well, maybe these guys can come to NCAA hockey now, that the pathway is open for them. Yeah. So now there's a whole other world of recruiting you have to kind of now expand and dig into. So maybe the pressure goes up on NCAA coaches, but, it's a pretty solid job if you get there and are successful. And David Carl has been nothing but successful since he's been there. But you have to remember, he was a Denver student who stayed there, became an assistant coach under Jim Montgomery, and then got the job when Montgomery went to the pros. So he is a Denver guy. Does he want to leave that for the questionable world of the NHL? And look, as you said, we went through it with Dave Haxtell. Dave Haxtell's first answer to the Flyers was no. And it took some cajoling and convincing by Ron Hextall to get him to leave Grand Forks. Again, a guy who was uber successful at the college level, a Frozen Four team perennially. He did not have to leave. And he opted to come to the NHL and take whatever you want from that, whether he was successful, not successful, whatever. But it took a lot to get him out of there. And other college coaches have been approached. What I've been told from the college coaches that I know is the standard NHL deal for a coach is 3 years. Well, okay, so let's say you have a middling first year. Your second year maybe doesn't start off well. There's not a lot of runway after that.
Yeah.
If you want a 5-year deal, well, then you have a little bit more job security. Whether it's here, or whether it's in the NHL or elsewhere, you're still going to get a consistent paycheck until you get your next job. It's a little bit easier to make that move. So you have to have a team that's really willing to make a commitment to a guy. Not a lot of NHL teams are willing to make that long-term commitment to a coach who maybe doesn't have NHL experience. So it's interesting. It's certainly a question. If you're talking X's and O's, certainly David Carl has proven his mettle that he knows how to win. Would that translate to the NHL? I'm not sure. He's never played at this level. He was on the path to being an NHL player. Unfortunately, he had a medical condition that disqualified him from playing. So he went another route. Does it get him to the NHL? It's going to be very interesting. I'm sure NHL teams are doing their due diligence as we speak.
Do you think it's more likely, I'm just going to keep pushing this button because it's fun, but do you think it's more likely that if he were going to make the jump, it would be to being an assistant at the NHL level? Or is it something where, if you're going to make that jump and you're going to leave your comfort and where you found so much success, it has to be for a head coaching job?
I would think it would have to be for a head coaching job. If he wants to be an assistant, other than a larger paycheck maybe, I don't know what the benefit of that is. Now, if you're saying, would he take the equivalent of a gap year and go to the American League and kind of understand what the difference between pro hockey, similar to with players.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe that would be a little bit better, and you make him, and you let him know, hey, wink, wink, nod, nod, you're our coach in waiting. If something goes wrong with our guy at the NHL level, I don't know.
Listen, if Alexei Kolosov doesn't have to go to Lehigh Valley, why should David Carl?
I think it'll be entirely up to David Carl. Yeah. I think if he's comfortable at Denver, obviously he loves Denver, he loves college hockey. Maybe he doesn't want to leave. Not everybody's goal in that level is to be in the NHL. Sometimes when you're in a happy spot, happiness wins out over no matter how many zeros are on the end of your paycheck.
Though it doesn't hurt if there are enough of those zeros.
Well, again, but this goes back to Dave Haxtell, right?
Yeah.
If he I've never asked him this, but I wonder if he had it to do over, would he have rather stayed at North Dakota and been comfortable? He was a North Dakota student. That program, when you go to a college, you play for a college team. becomes part of your identity.
Yeah.
Maybe in hindsight he would have rather stayed
How
there.
much does a college coach make on average?
How much you think cost of living in Grand Forks, North Dakota is? Maybe a little more expensive in Denver.
Yeah.
But again, there's never my dad. One of the things my dad taught me when I was very young: never take a job for the money, because money comes and goes. Happiness, though, is the key. So if you're happy in a place and you're happy with the people you work with and you're constantly bringing in new players so you don't have that, long-term butting of heads, maybe you're happy right where you are.
Putting happiness before money. This holiday message is brought to you by Adam Kimmelman and NHL.com. All right, let's turn the page. And there have been a lot of questions, comments, and concerns over here that we're trying to get to. There was somebody threw out the idea here, and I think it was mostly a joke, and then people are going back and forth. If Lavi gets let go by the Rangers at some point, people look back on the Lavi era here very fondly. There is zero chance he comes back to Philadelphia, right?
I would never put zero on anything. I mean, look, Peter Laviolette's an incredibly successful coach. Having lived through his tenure here, it was a huge, I would say it was a net positive. Look, they went to a Stanley Cup final with him. Who was the last coach before that to take the Flyers to the Stanley Cup final, right? It was a long time ago.
Long time.
So, is he still, Peter, let's put it this way. A season ago, Peter Laviolette was the coach of the President's Trophy winning team.
Yeah.
This year it hasn't gone the right way for them. I don't know if coaching necessarily is the reason the Rangers are struggling.
Feels like a front office. There's almost like depending on who you talk to, it almost seems like there's been an open rebellion from the players against the front office in a sense.
Well, I think there's some unhappiness with the way certainly Barclay Goodrow was treated.
Yeah.
I think there was some unhappiness over, going back to last summer, the way the news of the Jacob Trouba trade talks that maybe were there, maybe weren't, kind of were handled. And I think there certainly was some bad feelings over the way the trade was executed. Yeah. And whether he was forced into accepting the trade when he was, or, whatever that situation was, I think enough has come out from, sources to say that, yeah, there's an issue there. Now, the flip side of that is, well, it's just the price of doing business. The players need to play better, and there certainly is some of that. But I think if you break it down, what was and versus what is, I don't really, Peter Laviolette didn't just forget how to coach.
Correct.
Over the offseason.
Yep.
So, I think read into that what you would. If he's available, he's never been a guy who's been out of work for very long, because you look at that resume and he's taken 3 teams to the Stanley Cup final. He's won it once. He's arguably the most successful American-born NHL coach ever, and he's still young enough. I mean, nothing against John Tortorella, but he's 68 going on 69.
Yeah.
Peter Laviolette is not there.
Yeah.
So, he could still be, rather than just a short-term answer, he could be a longer-term answer if you're, so inclined.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't rule it out completely, no.
There's a question that just came up here that intern Andrew threw up there, but Torts has another year left on the deal after this season. Mm-hmm. There had been murmurs last year that he might look to transition to a front office role, if not before the end of his contract, perhaps once his contract wraps up. Brad Shaw's name has come up a few times as being somebody that maybe the keys would get handed off to. Is there anything that would happen, let's say this season, that you could look back and say, like, conceivably, maybe Torts doesn't coach that last year, he does move to some kind of advisory role and effectively hands the job off to his top assistant? Like, is that plausible to you, or do you think it's...
Oh, yeah, I for sure think that is definitely something that can happen. Look, forget who he is and take his personality out of the equation, right? Any person, age 68, age 69, to travel and to live the life of an NHL coach, just look at the start to the season they had, where they go Calgary to Seattle to Edmonton to Vancouver to fly home to play the next day.
Yeah.
That is just thinking about that makes me tired, and I'm not that old, and I'm not that old, right? Imagine it when you're that age. And then there's no slowing down from that point. You just go and go and go. And when the players have a day off, you're still going and going and going and going. So that wears on somebody, especially when you've been doing it for close to 1,600 games for more than 25 years. That's a long way to go. That's a long way to grind, and it's tiring.
Yeah.
So I absolutely could see a path where he says after this season, no matter where it ends, when it ends, how it ends, I've had enough. It's time for me to step away.
Yeah.
Let somebody younger, different kind of take over. And whether that's Brad Shaw, whether that's
Rocky Thompson.
Well, whoever. It could be anybody. Whatever it is. Anybody. It's just time for a new voice, younger, better is probably the wrong word, but just younger, different, somebody who's more equipped to handle the wear and tear of the life of an NHL coach.
I want to get into tonight's game now.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one thing that seems to be going around right now is that Reeves is in the lineup. Hathaway, McCabe. There was an incident. Some thought that there might have been a last-second punch. Some think that Hathaway might have just fallen onto McCabe. But it's pretty clear that by inserting Reeves into the lineup, it's at least to send a message. Do you expect Reeves to take a run at Hathaway? Is he there more as a deterrent? How do you see it playing out? I mean, it's Berube making the call. It's
Yeah, well, look, I think
team that he obviously likes, has an affection for to an extent. Where do you think it lands tonight?
Well, I think just because it's Philadelphia, I thought Ryan Reeves was going to be in the lineup tonight, regardless of what had happened previously. This is just a place where you would expect to see that kind of player, who brings that physical element, because it's Philadelphia, for better or worse. That's what this city and this team, this logo kind of stands for, right? So I thought he'd be in anyway. When you add up whatever happened, you can Zapruder film that, McCabe falling. Look, it was horrible that it happened.
Yep.
We talked to Chief this morning. We asked him if there's any kind of a timeline for McCabe to come back, and he said no. It's just a matter of working through whatever the upper body injury is, and they won't know until he's able to get back on the ice. Again, we don't know when that's going to be. Hopefully it's soon. Whatever Ryan Reeves does or doesn't do tonight, we all know what kind of a player he is. We all know what he brings to the game. Is there going to be a run-in at some point between Ryan Reeves and Garnett Hathaway? I'm sure Reeves isn't going to shy away from it.
And you expect Hathaway kind of knows that it could be coming.
For sure. He's not going to shy away from it, and he's not going to shy away from it either. That's the kind of player he is. So, could we see something tonight? I would say more likely versus not likely. But, you just hope it's in the run of the game rather than, they discuss it and they do it and they get it over with. That kind of stuff doesn't really impress me. It more impresses me when you play the game. And look, when Ryan Reeves plays the game, he can be an immovable object on the forecheck, right? You dump the puck in. If you're a defenseman, you're looking over in your shoulder and you're seeing big number 75 come roaring down on you with speed at that size. That's a scary, scary sight coming. And the hope is that when he gets going, you'll throw that defenseman will throw the puck away.
Yeah.
Rather than take the chance of hanging in there and making a play and taking a hit, which is gonna hurt.
Now there's a little bit of intrigue, and the last time that we did a press row show, we were kind of arguing about goalies and about what was going to happen in Sam Erson's absence, and that, hey, you're going to get another look at Alexei Kolosov. Ivan Fedotov was on ice. They didn't give him a conditioning stint. He was just kind of he's just happy to be here, I guess. Well, probably not very happy to not be playing, but to be here. And I kept coming back to you can't carry three forever and not have Fedotov get into any game. It just seems insane. Kolosov has really had some struggles since Erson's gone down. Fedotov, I thought, looked okay, all things considered.
Yes, for not having played for a month, to go back in against a really, really talented offensive team on the road, it was quite, and John Tortorella admitted it was a really tough spot to put Fedotov into. And the fact that they got a point out of that game speaks to what he must have been doing on his time away, working with Kim Dillabaugh, improving whatever aspects of his game he felt needed to be improved. And look, he's a guy with 20 games of NHL experience. He's still learning what it's like to play in North America. Yep. Even though you're 6'8", you still have to, fight through screens, fight through traffic, fight through physical play that you're not used to when you're over in Europe, when you're in the KHL. It's a very different element of it, and he's learning it at the NHL level on the fly, which is a challenge. Kolosov also is doing the same thing, but what gives Fedotov the advantage is he's 6'8", and you would hope he'd be able to better see around those screens, see over them, versus kind of ducking down and getting low and giving up the top part of the net. He should, and that's kind of the learning process he has to go through, being able to, you don't have to be at the top of the blue. You can kind of hang back, use your athleticism, use your size as a blocking type goalie. You don't have to be overly aggressive and get yourself caught out of position. So maybe that's one of the things he was working on, but he earned another chance tonight, and that's all you can ask for in this situation. And Tortorella talked about it this morning. We're still trying to evaluate who both of these guys, and even Ersin, you're still trying to evaluate who and what these guys are going to be over the long haul of the NHL level. So getting Fedotov in net again today is really big, and you hope he's able to have a similar effort to what you saw the other night in Toronto, because they've got 4 home games coming up here this week, and I don't know if or when Sam Erson's going to be able to play. He skated this morning, for all intents and purposes. He seemed okay, he looked okay, but, when you're skating out there with Oleg Lexell and Eric Johnson, it's a little different than playing in an NHL game. So
third lower body injury of the season, too. Right?
Well, of course, and that's also absolutely a concern, because 2 years ago, it was a very similar situation. He was in and out with the Phantoms. He had surgery, and you didn't quite know where it was going to go. He was healthy last season for almost the entirety of it, and you saw what he's capable of doing until he unfortunately ran out of gas a little bit because they didn't have a backup to play for him. This year, they're trying to find one amongst Ersin, amongst Fedotov and Kolosov to ease that burden on Ersin. But right now, those guys are going to have to carry it on their own for however much longer they're going to have to.
It's a pretty brutal thing to have to go through, but I guess, and we've been saying this most of the season, the one if you want to have a positive, and it's certainly not a positive that Ersin, who you expected to be your number one and shoulder the bulk of the games this season, is that, for better or worse, it has given you an ability to get a look at Kolosov and Fedotov at this level. Now, there are certain media people, Kevin Kurtz, who very clearly believe that Alexei Kolosov belongs in the AHL. Where do you stand, based on what you've seen, especially let's say over the last 2-3 weeks? Do you think he would benefit from going down to the A?
I would.
Okay.
I would 100%. I think he would be. He should have been in the American League for the majority of the season, because the best way to learn about hockey in North America, the NHL is not a developmental league.
Yeah.
And Alexei Kolosov clearly is someone who needs extra development, and he shouldn't be getting it here. He should be getting it in Lehigh Valley. So whether he's against going there or not, I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. I can't say. But I think for the long-term benefit of him and the franchise, I think he probably would do well being there. Now, unfortunately, at this point, you have no choice. He has to be here because somebody's got to play, and you need somebody to be the backup. And there are no really other options. But when Ersin comes back and he proves he can stay healthy, I think there has to be a conversation. I think, you don't want to lose either of these guys. And when I say that, there's two different meanings that you don't want to lose them from a development standpoint by having them play subpar hockey here when they're not ready for it. And you also, and this applies to Fedotov, you don't want to risk losing him on waivers, because 6'8" is still 6'8".
Sure.
And there's a lot of potential there. So, I think in an ideal world, Ersin and Fedotov are your two goalies here. Kolosov is playing the bulk of the games in Allentown and developing and building and getting used to hockey in North America, because it is markedly different than what he was playing in the KHL.
The last thing I wanted to get to with you is just let's say a 10,000-foot view, what you have seen from Jamie Drysdale and whether or not he is a salvageable player this season. I'm not saying he's still young enough where he probably learned some bad habits playing in Anaheim, playing through injuries, missing a lot of time. Like, I don't think that we are anywhere close to being able to say he is a bust of a player. But this season, do you think there is a possibility that he turns things around and maybe doesn't look like the dynamic defenseman they thought they were getting in the Cutter-Gauthier trade? Maybe doesn't look like the next decade he can be the QB of PP1. But, like, this season, can they at least make him into a remotely salvageable, let's say even a second pair defenseman?
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, and I'm going to route this back into Kolosov for a minute, where the NHL is not developmental level. And I think Jamie Drysdale was put in the NHL well before he was ready.
Yeah.
And to your point, bad habits or whatever, and the injuries certainly haven't helped. He has to stay in the lineup to be able to learn and grow. And I think being around Bradshaw and for whatever John Tortorella is, just kind of having that pressure put on him that things aren't going to be allowed to slide. He has to be on his game 82 games a year. And I think that's only going to help him get better. Is he salvageable? You know, I guess it depends what your definition of salvageable is. If you can get him to a point where he can be a confident player, I think he'll be in good standing. And if he's a second pair guy, if he's a third pair guy, whatever, I think ideally you want him to be able to lead your power play. If he can quarterback your power play and make it effective, I think that's what you want. I think that chance can be there. I think with Drysdale, it's just a matter of cutting out those bad habits that are in his game and kind of getting him confident and him staying healthy.
That was a nice positive way to end pregame. It was great to have you here, Adam. Appreciate you pinch hitting.
Absolutely.
For Ant tonight. Again, he'll probably be here Thursday. Adam, it was great having you here. You have a prediction for tonight?
I hope both teams do well.
There we go. The true winners are the fans. Adam Kimmelman. Go read him over on NHL.com.
Feel better, Ant.
We're going to get to predictions here really quickly because they're about to drop the puck. Intern Andrew, go ahead and hit the people with your prediction.
I'm going to take the Flyers 5-4.
You have Flyers 5-4.
High-scoring affair today.
That's interesting because I have the Leafs 5-4.
Okay.
Ant has the Leafs 4-2, and Bundy has the Flyers 4-2. We got to roll out. Predictions are there. Bundy's here now. Bundy will be back during first intermission, second intermission, and postgame. How you doing, you beaut?
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year to our great crew, our great fans. Doing good. Just did pregame radio. Going to be an interesting game here tonight. I should actually do this. Share with me what I do on radio, the keys to the game. So I have my 3 keys to the game.
Go ahead quick because they're about to do the national anthem.
All right, well, the first game back, keep it simple. It's not really a trap game because you're playing Toronto. Number 2, be aware of Matthews. Number 3, special teams. Listen to the song, enjoy the music.
The 50-second state. Here we go. Oh no, where'd it go? Where'd it go? There it is, I got it, we're good. Welcome in to the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator, west of the 51st state, Greenland, and south of the 52nd state, Canada. I'm Russ Joy. That's Bundy. Intern Andrew's here. Our second intern is here, not on camera currently, but is here working very hard this evening. Bundy, it has been quite some time since you and I have been together in this capacity, and we have been treated to at least one period of the Flyers leading the Maple Leafs. Ivan Fedotov hasn't had a ton of work, but has been okay to this point. What are your big takeaways from the first period?
Yeah, he's looking good out there. I thought the Flyers really frustrated Toronto a lot in that first period. Toronto was having a hard time getting through the neutral zone. They're having a difficult time getting the puck across the offensive zone. 5-on-5 and even strength in this hockey game, there's not a lot of space on the ice. There's just not. They're playing March hockey. As I predicted, Russ, they're playing March hockey in January because that's the way that this is dictating itself to be, with the way that everybody is just clammed together down by the bottom of those standings in the 8th spot. So it's an important 2 points. It was a great first period for the Flyers. And Toronto, I will assure you, with Craig Berube as their coach, are going to figure some stuff out after the first period. One of them I think that he's going to be disappointed with his effort. I don't think Toronto poured it in that period, and I think we'll see a better Toronto team in the second, no doubt about it.
One of the storylines coming into the game, and I broke this down with Adam Kimmelman pregame, was that Berube put Reeves into the lineup, presumably to send a message to Hathaway after what happened with the incident with McCabe. There had been questions about whether or not there might have been a last-second punch if he just kind of fell on him. And it seemed like the interpretation out of Toronto, at least from the team, maybe from Berube, was that it was kind of more of a happenstance thing. Wasn't really an intentional thing that happened.
Just a fight, and if you look before it, McCabe was going after Garnett for quite a while before, probably 15 seconds, and then that's when the fight ensues, and I think he fell on him. That's what hurt him. Landed on his head after the fight. Yeah. But I don't know. I didn't see the need to dress Reeves. I mean, there's no one out here for him that's gonna drop the gloves or be a willing combatant. That's a heavyweight tilt. So I get Chief though. I mean, I know Craig Berube. I know his style pretty well. Yeah. And nobody in Toronto was really happy about the McCabe thing, even though I don't think anything meant there was no damage done with intent at all.
Just looking at that first period. Noah Cates had a lot of time on ice. Noah Cates has been not the object of ire among the fans, but there have been a lot of questions going around about how much we can expect to see him play going forward. It seems like Torts is kind of back high on Cates and his play over the last few weeks.
He should be.
What is it about him that you think dictates that he should be playing as much as he does?
He checks really well. He's always on the right side of the puck. He turns pucks over. He's a smart player, and he's scored a lot of goals of late. So if you can get a guy that you think is a checker, and he can step up and elevate and start scoring some goals, I think that's been a pretty big key for Noah Cates and for that team. That's been the one consistent line that's stuck together through everything the last month, and he's proved to be a pretty valuable hockey player for this hockey team at this stage of his career.
There were a few times in that period where it looked like Jamie Drysdale. I don't know, man. I'm having a hard time. I brought this up with Kimmelman pregame, just about. I think at this point you're just trying to salvage Drysdale's play the rest of the season. You're not expecting to get him to the level that you thought he was going to be when you acquired him in the Gauthier trade. You're not giving up on him by any stretch. He's still young enough, but that first period wasn't exactly strong by him either. Is there anything positive that you can?
A couple times, guys get behind him sometimes. He gets flat-footed in the neutral zone for some reason, and he ends up trying to catch up. He's a little bit like Shane Gostisbehere, where if you watch him, he's not a fast, straight-line skater. He's shifty. He goes side to side extremely well when he's playing like that, but he's not a fast, straight-line, north-south skater. So he gets flat-footed in the neutral zone. A couple of guys got behind him. He's just got to be more authoritative with the puck, getting pucks out of the zone, and that's the one thing. If I was a coach of him, I would tell him the one thing I want to see is you make that first good pass out of the zone. We'll worry about the rest of the stuff later, but right now, one good pass out of the zone, get up the ice, and then fall back with the flow of the play.
Now, I'm seeing people in the comments are complaining about the ESPN broadcast, which tends to be the case, the ESPN Hulu broadcast. You see Kevin Weeks earlier?
I did.
That was a heck of a suit he had on.
Sure was.
It was a bold look.
So it was a
I saw him over in the press box, and I was
good
like,
look
"Ah."
only my old buddy Kevin Weeks could get away with. There's only a few people in this world that could wear that suit.
He happens
he's
to be
one
one
of
of them.
them.
Yeah.
I don't see much of the these games because I find people are really complain about the Hulu aspect, Hulu ESPN Plus aspect of it. It's just it's difficult to watch games.
I think it's frustrating.
It is. It's frustrating. I think in a couple, 2 or 3 more years, I think people are going to come to realize that that's the way that things are getting done now. But right now, it's still not there. You know, I mean, people aren't just going to go get Hulu to watch a handful of Flyers games.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is probably going to end up helping Disney as a whole is they had been doing this, but it seems like they've been doing it more within the Disney Plus app. They've been putting select games. Like if you have Hulu or ESPN Plus, they're now kind of feeding that into the Disney Plus app. And if you're a parent out there, you probably have Disney Plus either on the remote or pretty much like the combination of how to get there from your menu. If you have young kids, if you have to watch Bluey as much as we do in our house.
I like to watch The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, Hitch, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm here. That's my favorite movie.
Why is that your favorite movie, Hitch?
Because I love the short, fat guy that just could. He had the ability to just do. He couldn't shut down the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Anybody ever ring your bell, Hitch?
My bell rung a few times. Yes, I have.
So, one other thing that happened in that period, I guess notably, Joel Farabee went to war. Huh? Good play on the name. Get it? Because it was Farabee versus DeWar. Farabee got in a fight.
Good fight. Yeah,
it was a good fight.
Mixed things up a little bit
showing
early.
out of him.
It was a good class belt. I mean, they were a couple middleweights, and they both went at it pretty good. It was a good job by Farabee. I don't know what started that, if there was like an old rivalry somewhere from that, but I didn't see if there was something on the ice. But it was a good fight by both guys, and it was the Flyers, I mean, they did not look like a team that just came off 5 games on the road in a long Western Conference trip, out west after Christmas. They've come back. And the reason why, I said this on pregame show on Flyers radio, was because, traditionally you'd come back and you maybe flat in a game like this. But because the Flyers just played Toronto in the first game of a home-and-home, I think it erases the fact that you can get yourself caught in a little bit of a jam, in terms of playing a game like this tonight where you come back and you are flat. So because it's a home-and-home, you lost to the team you just played. I think it takes a little bit out of that, and I think that's a good element for the Flyers to have in their game tonight.
I agree. We're going to go over to intern Andrew for the stat of the night, one of the Snow the Goalie / Press Row Show community's favorite parts of the Press Row Show. Intern Andrew, do you have a stat of the night available tonight?
So Sunday night's game against the Maple Leafs won in overtime 3-2. Austin Matthews had 2 assists in that game. That was his 199th career multi-point game. If he can do it again sometime in the next 28 games, he will become the fastest U.S.-born skater to get to 200 career multi-point games. The fastest as of right now is Pat LaFontaine, who did it in 617 games.
So he could do it tonight.
In theory, yeah.
In theory, right, yeah. Well, he's going to have a better first period than he did.
That was one of your keys, right? Containing him?
Containing Matthews was one of my keys tonight, yeah. Because, he came back from injury. He'd played 2 games in a row, which is tough. And I always figured, like, the third game in the 4-game frame, this is the 3rd and 4 games for Toronto, that would make it a little extra tired. Sometimes the best game you have when you come back from injury is your first game. And I thought that would have been against Boston the other Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada game for Toronto. He played very well in that game. He had 2 assists against the Flyers, but I didn't feel like he was on top of his game. And tonight, again, he's been okay, but he's not been the Austin Matthews we're used to seeing.
Okay.
Did you have another stat that you want to? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Come on. Give it to us.
Let's go. All right.
Not that we wanted, but we'll take it.
So you said you're the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Yes.
As of right now, I'm not a big fan of anything from Notre Dame.
You got a big game coming up.
I got a big game coming Thursday.
We're all going to be here together, by the way. Thursday night.
Thursday night.
The game's going to be happening while we're here, so.
Oh.
So I don't know if you guys know this or not. I actually went to Penn State.
You did?
I did.
I never knew that.
So my freshman year was the 2014 college hockey season, and that was a Penn State team that featured a right winger from Anchorage, Alaska named Casey Bailey. who on March 26, 2015, became the first Penn State hockey player ever to appear in the NHL, and he did so for tonight's opponent, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I believe April 11th of that year, he scored his first career goal.
For Toronto or against Toronto?
For Toronto.
Okay.
And then April 11th, he became the first Penn State player to score in the NHL, and he did so against Gary Price.
Actually, it is a little bit surprising to me.
I wonder how long did he play? Did he get any more games?
He played 6 games.
Okay. Well, he played 6 games.
But he also got to be the first.
He was the first. As of right now, I think there's only 3, including him. Brett Murray, and then the third one is Brandon Byro, who's in the AHL right now somewhere, but he was playing here last year for Toronto and actually scored against the Flyers last year.
Oh, okay.
So I heard Lou Nolan say his name, and I was like, oh, I recognize that name, Brandon Byro.
They'll eventually start putting more guys out as the program continues to grow.
I would like to think so. They're having a horrible year this year, though.
Yeah, that should be an easy place for teams to recruit to go play. I think it'd be a great hockey school, and they'll have to keep building. Once you get one guy in there that recruits and everything, and you get the team you want, that's how you build the foundation.
They can, maybe after Penn State gets bounced in the college football playoff, maybe they can use James Franklin's apparently elite recruiting skills to help the hockey team.
Yeah, maybe. By the way, did you catch any of the game? Did you see they played Notre Dame outdoors at Wrigley Field the other day?
I didn't. I'm so sick of the outdoor games.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree.
that thing they put on New Year's Eve was a disgrace.
You know what the worst part about it was?
It was an absolute disgrace to hockey. That they played 2 teams that were just not good teams. They try to capture the spirit of Wrigley, which is fine, but they've already done that. It's the same dance over again.
And they're
the same teams.
They were smart enough to try to avoid college football, right? Like that was the whole idea, was to try to stagger. And it didn't work. It was the lowest rated Winter Classic ever.
Yep.
The other thing I've always wondered was...
It was Seattle, right? It was
Seattle and Vegas last year, and that was the lowest rated one until this one.
Yeah.
So there's a downtrend right now, and I don't know what they got to do.
Surprise, surprise. When you take a very cool idea in the Winter Classic and you do the money grab to do the stadium
you make
series,
6 other games, right? It flows in to become all Winter Classics.
Yep. The other thing was just seeing it on TV. If you had tickets out in center field, there's no way you could even see what was happening.
No, I know.
And the weather was horrible. So
they've done these outdoor games. I'm not a huge fan of any of them. I won in Salt Lake City. You couldn't even see because of the sun. Or not Salt Lake City, Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
The Flyers played with the Bruins a few years back. Some of the sight lines were just horrible because of the sun, the shade coming off the mountains.
Remember we almost did a live show for MetLife last year? That was on the table for us.
Yeah, and I hate MetLife, so I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And they ended up losing, so.
And we also just couldn't get our setup up there. That was part of the other problem. We couldn't get access to the way we either do the press row show right or we don't do it at all. It is, after all, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, postgame show. I actually have a stat for you guys. We'll call it trivia. Can we do a first intermission trivia? Anybody opposed?
Let's do it.
Entering tonight, Travis Sanheim was one of just 3 Flyers defensemen since 2009-2010 to average at least 24 minutes and 44 seconds of time on ice this far into a season. Who are the other 2 defensemen?
What was the year again?
Since 2009-2010. Timonen is not one of them.
Is it Pronger?
Pronger was, yes.
Pronger's one of them. It was my next guess.
And Pronger did it. Obviously, it was just one season. He has the highest time on ice for a Flyers defenseman in a single season since 2009-2010. But the other Flyers defenseman on the list did it 5 times.
Coburn?
Nope.
No, it's not Coburn. He didn't play power play. Another defenseman did it 5 times.
Or 4 times.
The other name in my head that I have, I don't know that you would say it on this show. Is it Provorov?
It was Provorov.
It was, okay.
It was
I should have gone with my instinct.
It was Ivan Provorov. Remember, they were trying to play him in each and every situation.
You could never play that guy 24 minutes a night.
No.
No.
All right, so
no
here's the actual breakdown, just to give people some perspective. So like I mentioned, Sanheim, 24 minutes, 44 seconds time on ice per game thus far this season. Provorov did it in 2019-20, 2021-22, 2020-21, and actually the 2018-2019 season, he averaged over 25 minutes per game, 25 minutes and 6 seconds per game on ice. Pronger did 25 minutes and 55 seconds per night in the 2009-2010 season, that Stanley Cup run.
Yeah.
Interesting. That was an interesting note.
Interesting. Good stats.
That's what we're here for. We're the #1 rated show for a reason. Now,
Good question.
Oh, I thought that was a stretcher. It was a trash can. I got really worried. I saw some fluorescent colors and somebody looking kind of sad pushing it, and I thought we had like a medical incident up here. We didn't. It's fine. Bundy, as the Flyers get ready to go out for the second period, they have a 1-0 lead in this game. Wasn't exactly the perfect first period. What do the Flyers need to do in the second period to keep this game close, not let it get away from them, and have an actual chance to pick up at least 1 point here against Toronto?
Really hard to recreate that first period. I mean, that was kind of magical. I mean, in terms of keeping a team like Toronto at bay. They didn't have nothing. Flyers had great chances. I mean, Hathaway had a breakaway where he barbecued the puck into the corner, which I've seen happen many times before. He's not the only guy to ever do it. But I thought they had a great first period, and I think they're going to have to do more of the same in the second period. But again, Toronto's going to have a heavier push. I know their coach very, very well. He won't be happy at all with what went on in that first period for his Toronto Maple Leafs.
If you're looking for something positive from Ivan Fedotov in the second period, what's the thing that he needs to do? I mean, obviously stop the puck. But what does Fedotov need to do? Again, he didn't face a lot in that first period. How does he start out strong in the second?
Just be solid again. Make the routine save. I mean, he only had one shot. He had a lot of shots directed to the net that either missed the net or were blocked or whatever it might have been. But he's got to make the first save and then control the rebounds. That's always the biggest chore for a goaltender. I saw this question earlier: who's better, Pronger or Blake? Man, they were both really good, but I go with Pronger at the end of the day. Yeah, he won a Hart Trophy, Pronger, in his career. I mean, he was a unique ability. Rob Blake was a hell of a hockey player too.
What was Pronger like as a teammate?
Good. You know, I mean, I like Pronger. I got along with him. We had the same agent. We never played together, but we were friends, and we still are friends to this day. So, no, I got along great with him, but he didn't put up with anything in that locker room. Like, if he saw guys were dogging it, he'd make sure he let everybody know.
Yeah.
He was a true leader. He was.
Is that the kind of guy that you would want to play for? Like, well, we're about to run out of time here. In your career, what worked best with you? That kind of leadership or the kind of silent lead by example type leadership?
I think some guys that speak louder sometimes, you know, they do it when they're fair. There's other guys that are quiet leaders, and that's fine too, but I always preferred somebody that was more vocal about it. Pronger was that guy, no doubt about it.
We'll be back for the second intermission and post-game here on the Press Row Show. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe to Snow the Goalie on YouTube, and the show's also available wherever you get your podcasts. We take the post-game of the Press Row Show, we throw it in there, and apparently, as long as Ant is still alive next week, the plan is to have an actual episode of the show. If not this week, certainly next week. Kind of depends on the fella. We're seeing how he's feeling.
We'll get one in.
Anyway,
right,
we'll be back second intermission. Talk to all of you very, very soon here on the Press Row Show. welcome back into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator.
What else?
West of the 51st state, Greenland, and south of the 52nd state, Canada.
I'd like to know how many people actually think that that would be a really good idea. I actually happen to think that economically, why not? Taxes are high up there. I'm from there, I know.
North of the 53rd state, we love the Panama Canal.
It doesn't have to be the 51st state. It can be something else. It'll still be its own sovereignty and everything.
We're going to get to 60.
Figure it out.
Guam, we love Guam. We love American Samoa. Do we get Roman Reigns? We love Roman. We love Jacob Fatu.
Oh, that's so funny, Russ.
No wrestling talk today. All right, it's 2-2 after 2 periods. The Maple Leafs have 9 shots tonight. 2 of those shots came very late in that period.
Yeah.
Including one on a breakaway. I looked at International and I said, 2 goals on 7 shots. Breakaway goes. Flyers have 19 shots on net. When you look at Fedotov's night so far, he's faced limited shots. Now, they have had opportunities. There have been some plays around the net. What has your assessment been of Fedotov, especially in that second period?
Pretty solid. I mean, he stopped the breakaway there again at the end. He did a nice job. I think he's been solid. You know, he hasn't seen a lot of rubber either, and sometimes that can be kind of challenging when you don't see a lot of pucks because you fall out of flow. But I think he's doing a really good job tonight, just staying with it. I mean, Toronto's got a lot of offense. They have a lot of good offensive players, and you know, Matthews gets open in the slot like that. There's not a whole lot you're going to do to stop him, and that was the case on the second goal. No, but I think Fedotov's no problem here at all from my end. I think he's playing a very good hockey game.
Fedotov, especially when you think back to the fact that prior to last game, hadn't really played in a month. He doesn't look like a guy who's had that much time off. I mean, hell, when you think about it, even Ersson, after going on IR and coming back, looked rusty, to say the very least. It is impressive, if nothing else, that the guy's been able to at least be competitive in these games. And give them an actual chance to walk away with at least 1 point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they're playing a good game, and this is a kind of game, actually, where watching the Flyers play, they're playing one of their best games of the year so far through 2 periods. They have. This has been they've had a lot of effort. They've had a lot of second effort. They've made smart plays with the puck. They forced Toronto into a lot of turnovers. Toronto's having a terrible time getting pucks out of their zone. And as a result, that takes away the skill of those guys like Marner, Matthews, Nylander, and Tavares. So credit the Flyers. I think they've had an absolutely outstanding 40 minutes so far in this hockey game.
Your big money guys and your star players are the ones that you typically expect to perform in big moments. And this is listen, Toronto's a much better team on paper. They have higher expectations, all that. Konechny has 2 goals in the game.
Yep.
Put you up at least for a bit there in the second. Tavares and Matthews are going to do what they do.
Yep.
They both delivered for Toronto tonight. At this point, is there anybody on the Flyers, from the forward perspective, that you think looks ready to break through? Could be worth keeping an eye on in that third period?
Brink. Bobby Brink looks pretty good. Forrester's been quiet tonight. Tippett's been pretty decent. I'd like to see him get the puck to the net more. It seems like it's such a struggle sometimes. Who else has been in? Bobby Brink's been really all over tonight. Mishkov I think he's got 7 shots on goal.
He does.
Yeah.
He's interesting, too, because after 1, he had the 3rd fewest minutes of any forward.
Yep.
And now through 2 periods, he's got the 4th most time on ice among all forwards. So something...
Well, the team's playing really well, and they're in a good groove, so you're gonna feel that through all 4 of your lines, and that's why, Torts is getting him more ice time, because he deserves it and because he probably doesn't feel like a threat defensively on the ice. So that's a good thing, and I really think when you look at the way that he's played in this game, I love the offensive shooting mindset. That's what he needs to do. He's almost scored early in the first with that one we thought might have gone in from the short side. Taking another couple shots on that power play. He's making good decisions. He's playing really a very, very good, smart hockey game. The pucks aren't going to go in every night. That's part of it. So that's something that a young player has to deal with as well, is the fact that even though you're getting chances and you're getting shots on goal, sometimes that puck's not going to find the twine, and you have to be able to deal with that.
I think now's probably about as good a time as any. It is everyone's favorite second period segment here on the Press Row Show. Intern Andrew showed up with a very nice stat of the night in the first intermission. The second intermission means it's time for this beaut to come on screen. Intern Andrew, you have trivia ready for us.
I do. By the way, I might have just spoken to existence that Austin Matthews thing. He had 2 points in that period, so now he's faster than LaFontaine. Okay. So let's go back in time, as I always do. Way back in time to December 27th, 2007.
Wow.
It was a game that the Flyers beat the Toronto Maple Leafs here.
That he only does things from like 2000 something and later?
Yeah, I know. We
talked about
Bundy says this every game.
All right, so go ahead. So what was the date again?
December 27th, 2007.
Okay.
The Flyers beat the Maple Leafs here 4-1, and it was the first Flyers home game that intern Andrew ever attended in person.
Wow.
How old were you then?
So I would have just turned 12.
Gross. Okay.
Yeah. Why is that gross?
Just a kid.
He's a wee little pup.
Here I am now. I just was out of retirement. 1 year retired then, and 12-year-old was at the game that I'm now working with.
Isn't that crazy?
I was
Isn't that amazing?
I was 17. I was getting ready to. I was in my final year of high school, getting ready to go off and explore the great unknown of
Do you remember this
Westchester.
game?
I might.
Is there a stat?
So the question is, the Flyers won the game 4-1. Who were the two goaltenders that started, and who had the one goal for the Maple Leafs?
Well, that's...
So December 27th, 2007. You want to know who the goalies were?
Yes.
So on each side. Oh!
Was it Robert Esch?
No.
Would it have been Bush?
Nope.
Nitamaki.
No.
The Toronto goalie, I mean...
That one's tougher. The other two names you should come up with.
Was Nabokov in Toronto?
No.
No, he wasn't, huh? Oh, you know what? We're missing the two guys. I accidentally looked at my sheet. I'm not going to say it, but it's one of the two guys. I don't know how I missed thinking that those guys would be here. Marty Biron?
Yes.
Yeah.
Biron.
Yeah, that was really dumb of me. He was here 4 years.
The Maple Leafs goalie, I'll say this, he has the same name as me.
Andrew.
Really?
Yeah.
Andrew Nitamaki. I'm just kidding. I know that's not a person.
It might be somewhere.
I don't know.
You don't remember Andrew Raycroft?
No.
No? Okay, well. The goal scorer for the Maple Leafs, I'm pretty sure, is in the Hall of Fame now. He's got to be.
When you're standing in the
Matt Sundin?
Yes. I wouldn't have asked for the goal scorer.
Definitely in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's got to be.
You said it was 4-1 though, right?
Yeah.
So 4 scores for the Flyers.
Oh, that I wasn't expecting you to get. I just wanted the one goal for the Maple
We
Leafs.
could kind of pick our brains
It's
here.
good trivia, though. I mean, I like how he tied it into himself.
2007?
That's a good one, Andrew.
2007.
I have the goal scores if you want them.
How many of them were forwards and how many were defensemen?
So there's 3 goal scorers. Somebody had 2, but they're both forwards. Or 3. I'm sorry. 3 goal scorers of the 4 goals. Somebody had 2. All 3 of them were
Jeff
forwards.
Carter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Richards.
No.
Gagne.
No.
When did Ville Lino play here?
He came
That was
later.
later.
He came
That was later.
Yeah, he came later.
It is not him.
Yeah, I don't know.
It better not. It's not my boy Zherdev, right?
No.
I love Zherdev.
Joffrey
No,
Lupul had 2. And then the other goal scorer is one Daniel Briere.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go. Good trivia tonight.
That was a nice job.
That was your first live Flyer game.
It was the first home game. I went to one game on the road in Raleigh when I was living in North Carolina.
Okay.
Hey, Vineet Singh has a really good note on Raycroft. The Leafs traded Tuukka Rask to Boston for Raycroft.
Really?
That's what Vineet Singh says, and he's never steered us wrong before.
I believe that.
That was a little bit of a misfire.
I believe in Vineet.
It was a bit of a misfire then by the Maple Leafs.
Good trivia.
Nice job tonight.
Thank you.
You'll be back post-game.
I'll be back post-game. I'm not leaving early.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody in the building tonight thought that Toronto would have less than 10 shots after 2 periods.
It's a weird, kind of uncharacteristic game. Is it just because the Flyers have been good at suppressing?
They've checked them. There's no space on the ice. There's 0 space at all to maneuver. That's why the power plays have been efficient. I mean, that's why they're getting chances. The Flyers, in turn, have had a lot of chances 5-on-5. I mean, they've played a great 40 minutes. It would be a shame to lose this game. It really would. Like the way that they
just
played,
based on how they played.
How they played through 40 minutes would be a shame.
Because when you look at this game on paper, it's not a schedule loss. right? Like, it's not one that you look at and you go, oh, yeah, talent. But when you get 40 minutes into the game and you see how you're stacked up against this team. Now, if you're Berube, what are you saying in the locker room after the second period?
He's not happy with his team at all. I can assure you that. He's telling them the same thing I'm saying. Guys, there's no space, so you got to get pucks behind their defensemen, meaning the Flyers' defense, and you got to try to work them. But the problem is that the Flyers are playing really well. They're locking down those plays on the wall. They're not giving up any real rush chances. Toronto's had a couple. I think they've had a couple of breakaway opportunities, but they've been come on bad bounces. This puck went off a guy, and hit a body, and the guy went down on a breakaway at the end of the period. But I'm the Flyers. I don't change anything. If I'm Toronto, it's hard to say that you want to try to shift more offense. But again, you're not creating anything because the Flyers have checked you so well in this hockey game. It's really been an unbelievably good hockey game for Philadelphia. It really, really has. That's what I'm saying is they got to find a way to win this game.
Yeah.
You need 2 points. The way you're playing now, you have got to dig in and find a way to get the 2 points. It's too important. Cates is another guy. I saw that. It looks good tonight. He's actually played really well also. Bobby Brink and Cates.
Mike Butts came in here, and Mike Butts, of course, is the reigning, defending, undisputed Still the Goalie pick champion. Will he be after this year? He's not in first place right now. Allison did send me an updated standings. He does not lead the fan base in the prediction point tracker that we have going. I should pull up Allison's.
Mike's usually right on, though, isn't he?
He's very close, though. He's close to the top of the leaderboard, but he's not at the top. So reigning defending we may be 42 games away from the ending of an absolutely incredible run atop that leaderboard. Anyway, there was a question that came up, or no, it was a comment here from Ryan A. saying that apparently the Leafs broadcast has been blaming the fact that Leafs players went out last night with their mentors as why they might be struggling in this game. That it's mentors' trip.
Yeah, they brought their mentors. It wasn't like the father's trip. They brought like even the coaches brought people out. Like they could bring a mentor. Craig Berube did not bring a mentor. I said, "You're your own mentor, aren't you?"
Who would Berube's mentor have been?
I have no idea. No, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I think he probably has guys that he's super close with his same age, but I couldn't imagine Craig bringing a mentor on the trip. But yeah, I mean, guys were said they're trickling in. I saw a couple of guys, former Toronto Maple Leafs. I actually had a picture taken with him. My buddy screwed up the picture. It was with Wendell Clark and Doug Gilmore. They're down there.
Really?
So they brought a bunch of guys on this trip to party and hang out. They don't just stop here. They actually go down to Raleigh after this game tonight for a game Thursday. So the party continues.
Who would have been your mentor?
That's a great question.
Great question. Well, I had a lot of mentors. I mean, I guess probably my dad. All said and done, but I don't know if you could bring your dad if it's a dad's trip or not. I have no idea. But I went down to the suite there, and it was all of them had Toronto Maple Leafs jerseys on of the player that had them, the mentoree, rather, right?
So your dad would have been your pick. If you had to pick somebody else, somebody from your career, let's say from your pro career, is there anybody that stands out as somebody who's kind of like a beacon of light in that career?
Well, I was always looked up to my partner, Eric Desjardins. He's only a couple years older than me, but he was such a professional. He was wise beyond his years as a professional and as a guy off the ice, on the ice. I mean, he was the perfect hockey player. So I would say he'd be a guy that I'd want to emulate if I started my career back up again.
If you started it back up again?
Well, I'm not starting. If I went back to day one, there's no time machine here, Russ. I can't do that.
There's some fight left in that dog.
There's no fight left in the dog. The dog is kicked.
A note from Still the Goalie: don't kick your dogs. All right, let's go out to the comments here. We haven't been doing a lot of the comments, but we're gonna get to some here. Let's go to Mr. Bone 99. Says, why can't our defenders, our defensemen, get shots to the net?
Because there's always somebody in the shooting lane. That's why. So you see guys shoot wide and they sometimes miss the net on purpose, but that's exactly why. It's hard to get those shots through. And when you do get the shot, you got to let go of it really quick. The problem is everybody's looking for the perfect play. And it's just not that easy to create the perfect play, especially 5-on-5.
I see there was a message here from Andrew Jacobson who said that I was like hanging this over people's head about the standings. I'm going to give you the most recent message from Allison. This is for all the people who have participated in the predictions. We do this with every tweet. By the way, We were late getting the tweet out. That was my fault. I had it sitting here in drafts, and then during the first period, I realized I didn't tweet it out. So if you haven't gotten your prediction in, or you put it on the wrong thing, that's fine. So as of New Year's Eve, okay? As of New Year's Eve, with 31 points, Brad 17777 is in the lead. Then 28 points in second place is Chris Freed. Mike Butts and Mads are tied with 24 points.
Wow.
Alex Town and Ryan Sage are in, well, I guess it's technically what, 5th place, tied with 21 points. And then everyone else who's participated so far have 18 points or fewer, which doesn't mean you're out of it. It just means you're a little bit behind. You have some ground to make up. 227 people have actively participated so far in this contest. Now, keep in mind, 31 points is not an insurmountable lead. You can get hot for a few weeks and be right back in this thing. So if you haven't participated yet, it's never too late to get in on the prediction. Well, it is for today, but for the next game, it's never too late. So there you go. There's your updated standings.
That's good.
Thank
Good
you
job.
for the
doing
peer
that.
pressure there. That was great.
Mike won it last year?
Mike did win it last year. So he said he'll take that at the halfway point. Mike is more of a second half guy, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, some people say it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Oh, that's the truth.
Keep that in mind, Andrew.
Right, Andrew? Not how you start.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's true. That's the story of life.
That's how we have 8 kids combined between us. Keeping that in mind. You can't woo a person. You can't woo a lady. You can't.
Rob,
Get
thanks
married.
thanks for this here. This is an important one here, and I appreciate you saying this, so thank you. And that is what I do.
nice.
That is my day job. I spend my days trying to help people get themselves sober and get their lives back on track. And so if there's somebody struggling, I appreciate you letting me know, and I'm always here for anybody that is. You guys know that.
We're getting a lot of nice things said about Allison for maintaining this.
Yeah, Allison's great.
Allison was compensated at the end of last year and will be again this year. She requested Snow the Goalie merch for her and her daughter, so we were very happy to do that. She's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a big help. It really is.
WEIV over on X asks, what's the objective to guess the score of each game? We track over the course of a year who gets the most predictions right. We have a point system. You get 1 point if you get the result right. You get 2 points if you get an exact score. And then the person who wins at the end wins a prize. Mike Boots is about to get his prize, I believe, in the next week or so.
Okay, well, we're going to keep track because we're starting the second, third period.
We will
See
be
you
back.
guys after.
Postgame. Welcome into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame and intermission and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator, west of the 51st state, Greenland, and south of the 52nd state, Canada. Russ, Bundy, intern Andrew
Yes, hello.
is here over there. If he's there, then who's in intern Andrew's seat? Oh, it's intern Arlo. Intern Arlo, how are you? How was the Flyers game for you tonight?
It was good.
You had fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all that matters.
What's today for you?
My birthday,
How old are you now?
8.
Was there any positive that you saw out there tonight?
That we scored only 2 times, and I was getting my hopes up for scoring in that last 12 seconds.
We all were.
Hey, getting your hopes up and having them dash, that's the Philadelphia tradition.
That's your indoctrination.
All right, thank you, intern Arlo. There we go.
Thank you, Arlo. Happy birthday, kiddo.
I have
All
a
right.
subordinate now.
You do. He can sit under the learning tree.
That was a terrible loss.
That was.
It's
Okay.
just a terrible, terrible loss because, like I said after the second, that was one of the Flyers' better games of the year. It really was. I mean, and to not get a point out of it is just, it's shameful, really. It's not on the team. I don't blame the team. It's just the way the circumstances kind of dictated the way the game went tonight. And I hated it. I hated the fact they didn't get anything or get rewarded for it. And that's the way the league goes sometimes. It can gobble you up. And when you're playing good hockey and things don't go your way, Toronto would look like just another team on the ice tonight.
Yeah.
Austin Matthews, though, I mean, he makes a difference out there, right? Like, I mean, he
Well,
made some huge plays late in that game, like that, winning that face-off with his foot to get the toe on his skate and then kick it back to the point where that third goal was scored was an unbelievable play by Matthews. But yeah, just a really deflating loss, really. I mean, I feel it tonight. I can't imagine how the team feels, and
I think the shots
like
were 32-17, the shots.
Andrew Fawcett said it. It sucked. What can you say? I mean, we're trying to sum it up for everybody, and it sure did feel. It just felt like we're a couple players light, you know.
Kind of let him off the hook. I mean,
yeah.
in fairness, like after the first period, you felt like, hey, you're in it. Second period, Konechny puts you up 2-1. You feel like, all right, this could be the night. Great job of suppressing. Great job of keeping, you were talking about it in the second intermission about just how there was no space on the ice. The Flyers neutralized a much more skilled team that has significantly more firepower, that has big money guys like Matthews, like Tavares, who ultimately are the difference makers in this game.
They are the difference makers, yeah.
And and listen, Travis Konechny, for being the highest paid guy on the Flyers, being the guy that this team really is in some way kind of built around. He showed up in a big way in this game.
Who was that again, Russ?
Konechny.
Konechny played a great game.
Yeah,
he did.
Mishka,
Mishka played a solid game tonight. He had some shots on goal, which I like the offensive north push that he had. Bobby Brink played some good games. He just couldn't get any finish on it tonight. Forster came on in the third period. Owen Tippett played. There was a lot of guys that played good games tonight. There really was. There was defensemen that played good. Risto played a good game. I'm not saying Phil Myers actually. Phil Myers actually played pretty well for Toronto, believe it or not.
Somewhere Ron Hextall smiling.
I was thinking of Igor Zamula,
Yeah.
number 5, because I think Phil Myers wore 5 here, and he just happened to be in the lineup tonight on the other side.
It's incredible that Konechny's now on pace for 40, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 and 41.
It'll be a lot harder getting the next 20 than it is the first 20. I can assure you of that.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, his career high is 33. So if you're getting 40 goals out of Travis Konechny, that's at least something.
I mean, the thing about Mishkov's game tonight, we said that after the first period he had the third or fourth fewest minutes of any forward. Then by the end of the second period, he had jumped up to the third most or the fourth most minutes among forwards. He had 7 shots on goal through 2 periods. In that final frame, I thought he was impactful as a playmaker, especially when they had opportunities late in that period. But he only had 1 shot on goal in the third. And he ends up middle of the pack. 14 minutes, almost 14 and a half minutes on ice. I don't know. I think that's now we're over his last 11 games. I think he has 3 total points.
Who's that?
Mishkov.
Yeah.
It's been a struggle for him. I felt like tonight was you always want to see that your young guys are able to rise to the big occasions against the better teams. And I do think that overall tonight, he doesn't have a lot to show for it on the stat sheet, but
I think he came to play in this one.
Yeah,
he looked aggressive.
Yeah,
you know?
I did. I liked
and he
his
drew that critical penalty.
Yeah.
In the third, late to give you a power play opportunity with a chance to get yourself back in and tie the game.
Made a beautiful pass across. Who missed that shot?
I asked him the same thing.
It was a right-hand shot on the far post.
It was a right-hand shot.
Would it have been Brink?
Was it Forster?
I'm not sure. It might. I don't know if it was Brink.
It all happened so fast. That was actually honestly,
Anybody know who had that one-timer at the end? We couldn't see it from down where we were. It was Tippett. Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay. That honestly might have been the biggest cheer of the game from the Maple Leafs contingency here. They were so thrilled that he missed the net on that. They scored louder than when they cheered louder than when they scored.
But again, that's a goal that's just a pure goal score. That's just got to go through the twine. You can't miss the net.
I mean, we've said that about Tippett 100 times.
But he's notorious for it, and it's I don't get it. All you got to do right there, that's a beautiful one-time pass. Just put the middle of the blade on it, aim it right for the middle of the net, and you got yourself a goal. And you're not talking to a goal scoring expert here. I can tell you that right now.
How about your one-timers?
They were fine. I mean, any guy that plays in the NHL can shoot a one-timer. I mean, most guys can. Everybody in the NHL can take a one-timer. But I'm just saying that, you can't miss a shot like that. That's a change in the game. It's the difference between getting a point or 2 points or no points.
And that kind of is the crux of this whole thing. And listen, wherever you land on what is a successful season to you as a Flyers fan, ultimately, whether you want to see culture, or whether you want it to tank, whether you want to see them make a push towards the playoffs, these are the kind of games that you're disappointed because you had a legitimate chance to walk away with at least 1 point. And at the same time, I don't think that the fact that they didn't tie this one back up in the third ultimately has you walking away from it feeling like the entire game was a waste. Right. Maybe a missed opportunity, but again, you on paper shouldn't really stack up against this Toronto team, and yet you have your... That was my son. It wasn't.
No.
It's just Mike the organist.
Mike's just breaking his order.
Okay, Mike? Mike, you good over there, brother? Well, we won't need those headphones next game.
Mike's just breaking instruments over there.
Mike is a man. Mike is awesome.
I thought Arlo flipped his chair over there, and it was not him, so I'm happy about that. But you go into this game, it is only the second start in about a month for Ivan Fedotov. And were all of the goals that he gave up tonight great? Not necessarily. Were they particularly soft? No. So then what? Your third goalie kept you in this game. Your big money guy in Konechny got you the points. Your top prospect, your top young guy that you want to build around, had himself an aggressive game and drew a penalty late in this game. You lose. I actually do view it as there are positives to take away from it tonight.
One question here says, what does Bundy want to see, obviously? Does he want the high pick? It's not that I want to see a team decimate themselves so bad that they get the top pick. But if you look at the history of the league and the way teams win, they always win when they have the 1 or 2 pick on their team. Almost always. Every team, you go through this schedule. See you, Mike. Have a good night, my friend. And so that's, I think, why this team needs to have that super high-end talent that they don't have here. And so that's why the draft is imperative. But again, I don't know how you're going to get to that pick. I mean, I guess you could keep losing games like this tonight, and that'll get you to the bottom of the standings quick. But I don't want that. I don't want that for the team because I think they've taken some strides, and it's a matter of plucking the players that you want to keep and then getting rid of ditching the guys that you don't, that you think you can you could turn the page and find new players. But
the game that the Flyers played against the Kings a couple of weeks ago, that was when you left after the second period because you were driven back from Canada. Russ and Anthony argued about that for a half hour, basically.
Yeah, and my point has just been...
I'm leaning towards you now at this point.
Are you?
I think I am.
Don't
tell Anthony.
My whole point is lower the ceiling, lower the floor. And what that means is lowering the ceiling, lower what your best-case scenario could be in terms of points.
See it, Timmy.
And lower your floor is also lower what the worst-case scenario for your team is, right? Lawton, Ristolainen, if you want to consider Frost. I don't think Frost really changes anything. I mean, I want to see a one-for-one hockey trade.
I do think, and I don't talk about trades. I don't, Anthony gets into it. I do think Risto and Lawton are going to get moved. I don't really, I think that's something they're trying to do. And I think there's a lot of interest around the league for them. There's a lot of guys, a lot of teams that want veteran depth on their bottom six. Lawton supplies that. And Risto's turned a corner. I mean, he could be, whether you can play him in your second pair or your third pair, he's an upgrade by the way he's played, if he can continue playing the way he is. But I do have a feeling that those two guys are going to get moved.
And listen, whether or not it happens remains to be seen. And there is an interview that was going around from up in Canada with Danny Briere that is, essentially made it seem like they're not going to do much of anything. They have no real eyes to make any kind of a meaningful move. Trading Lawton on paper isn't a major move. It sends a message in a sense that, like, you're trying to load up. Like, whatever it is, you're trying to load up on the draft capital and have the ability to either make deals on draft day or to potentially have a little bit of flexibility. It gives you a little bit of cap space, and it does give you the ability to make some other, like, fringe moves. Ultimately, like, whatever they choose to do, they're going to – I have a feeling that for the people who are hopeful that there are going to be 2, 3, 4 guys moved between now and the deadline, you're going to be disappointed. They can't go into this deadline with so many guys having interest across the league and walk away making no deals. Like, that to me is where you do talk about, like, what are we doing here? And I've been pounding the table now for about a year, just going, like, if you're calling it a rebuild, like, what are we doing here? You're either pregnant or you're not. You're either rebuilding or you're not. You can't do both.
No, you can't.
They tried this last year where it was like, oh, maybe they'll try to make the playoffs, but also like, oh, the pick would be nice. Like, we'll see. I hope to your point that they are at least having those conversations and that, like, maybe you could get something of value. There was a thing that came out last week that in order to get someone to take Ristolainen and for you to get back a late first-round pick, you'd have to take a bad contract. I think Ristolainen has played to a level this year that you shouldn't have to consider that.
Yeah.
Like, last year, the year before, I totally could have seen a scenario where you're taking back a bad contract for 2-3 years to try to get that late first. I think he's shown enough this year. You shouldn't have to burden yourself with another bad deal just to get a high pick. What?
Flyers are 1-10-4 against the league's top 10 teams.
From Ryan A.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
That's a good stat, yeah. That's a legit stat. That's a tough one.
Yeah, they don't beat the good teams.
No.
But they do play competitively.
They do.
Those good teams.
I give this team a ton of credit, man. They've come back in games this year where you're thinking it's impossible. Where they have 6 come from behind wins and they're down in the third period. I mean, that's like some teams' 2 years worth of it.
Yeah.
And you got to be lucky, but they don't stop coming at you. They just don't have the horses. They just don't have the Austin Matthews or the Mitch Marner on their team. They have good players, but they just don't have game-changing players.
I did have something on Ristolainen if you want to hear it.
Please go ahead.
Sunday, he recorded his second assist of the game. That was his 4th multi-assist outing since joining the Flyers in 21-22.
Who was that again?
Ristolainen.
Risto, okay.
That's the 3rd highest total by a Philadelphia defenseman over that span.
That's pretty nice.
So
yeah, so listen, I was a big Risto critic, right? He has played well this season by virtually any metric you can imagine. And whether you're an advanced analytics person, whether you're an eye test person, like, I think just across the board, he has proven a lot of doubters wrong. He would be a really good pickup for a playoff contending team. Will it happen? I don't know. Now, last thing here, I guess, before we wrap, Bundy, you were saying that, like, how do you get to that higher pick? Like, if that's the way that you ultimately think things are better. Based on tonight's loss that drops the Flyers to 17-19 and 5 on the season, that puts them at 39 points, which is the 8th fewest in the league. The gap between the 8th fewest and the second fewest points is now 7 points. Chicago is in a league of their own.
They're epically, they're awful.
The Flyers have 11 more points than Chicago. But, like, if you're trying to figure out, like, lottery luck and where do you get and maybe being able to move up, it's a 7-point gap between number 2 and number 8, assuming nobody jumps, right?
Right, and that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard to get back down there into the basement.
Well, if you trade Risto, because, like, if you think about what Walker, right, like the Walker trade last year really did hurt this team, right? So, like, if you're looking for past precedent, Walker was arguably their best defenseman last year and certainly worked well with Sealer. You traded Walker and Sealer got hurt, and the wheels really did fall off. Risto's been arguably your best defenseman all year. If he goes, that cascading effect that has, I mean, that could be the thing. That one move alone could be enough to kind of send you down a slippery slope. The problem is the culture thing, because you start losing games, And it's not like this where it was a close game where you kind of keep your head held high. You can't have it where you start to get blown out. That I think is
right.
Nobody wants that. That doesn't help.
No.
Even if you want the high pick, you don't want to watch your team get blown out every night because that is bad. And that's when you end up having like what we talked about for years with Provorov and those guys, right? Is like the losing culture that gets instilled in you, and you start picking up bad habits. Correct?
Mm-hmm. And that's you don't want to turn the fans off again too. I mean, this sold-out building tonight. There's a lot of energy in here. It was a hard-fought game. It was. The Flyers played a good game, like they did. And there it is, right there. That's a comment. It's not. I don't like to say talent. It's just they just don't have those horses.
Here you go. This one's a good one. They have good players. They don't have elite players.
That's exactly the point, Mike. That's exactly correct. They have good players. They just don't have those game-breaking players.
What I think this is the positive we take away from it. I think that we've now seen enough between some of the younger defensemen, some of the younger forwards. Are they hit or miss? Does a Forster go cold? Does a Tippett go cold? Yeah. Does a York sometimes look really competent and other times look a little bit iffy? Yeah. You get another top-end talent. You get like another Mishkov-level talent in here.
Yeah.
And you have them surrounded with those other guys. It takes some of the pressure off those other guys. Maybe they do blossom, and maybe this team is closer to being able to flip the switch into being a playoff team.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I heard an interesting thing the other day from a former league general manager I was speaking to at a game, probably before the break. And you know what he said? He goes, it's funny. He goes, but you get to a point with a hockey team where you just live with what it is. You get to a point where it is what it is, and you might just have a bad year, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? Like what I'm saying, like where you just, we want to do this, we want to trade that guy, we want to try to acquire that guy, but really you just can't do it, and you're stuck with your feet in cement. And that, I'm not saying that's the case. This team is like Chicago. That's a disaster to have to try to manage your way through. The Flyers are not that team. They work hard. They compete hard almost every single night. That's a John Tortorella effect. But if you want to be at the bottom of the standings, you probably didn't want to have John Tortorella as your coach.
That's true.
And that's the hard truth. That's the honest to God truth, because he's going to make you a little bit better than you probably are going to show.
So how many players on the Flyers right now do you think are better than Connor Bedard is? Out of curiosity.
One.
Just Michkov?
Well, probably Konechny. I mean, if he's playing right now.
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
Two.
Yeah, I don't know, Michkov. I mean, I don't know. Bedard is just, he has nobody around him. I mean, he has nothing. I mean, he doesn't have anything to work with. They've got a long road to hoe there. They could be working on 2 rebuilds by the time he's 10 years into the league.
It's not ideal.
No, they got lucky last time when they had Kane and Taves, and then they get those 2 defensemen, Seabrook and Keith. I mean, I
think Duncan Keith was a second-round pick.
He was.
Yeah.
Bundy, Rob Greeley asks, did Ivan Fedotov earn another start against the Stars?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, his third goal wasn't his fault. It was a redirection in front.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do about it through a maze of bodies. We'll be back Thursday, though.
We will. We'll be back. There's
Dallas.
A lot of games.
Rangers lost to Dallas tonight, in case anybody cares.
This month of games is a lot. March is insane.
March is crazy.
A 7-game homestand.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of us. So if you've been out there saying like, where are these guys? Listen, we do feel bad that we haven't done an episode in almost a month. It's not lost on us. But you'll be seeing a lot of us here at Wells Fargo Center for the Press Row Show, and also a regular episode of Still the Goalie. We send our very best to our friend, our fallen but not forgotten comrade, Anthony SanFilippo, who is probably asleep right now.
I'm sure he is.
As he's battling a mystery illness. Well, he may. Do you think he has a CPAP machine?
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of people have CPAP machines, I've learned. Lots of people have CPAPs. I don't do that. My wife told me I snored. She hasn't brought up the CPAP machine, but I'm like, it's not happening.
That thing's just the goofiest looking thing. I don't even know how you turn with it on.
Do you see like the tape? People like tape their mouths to like force the breathing through the nose. You ever see that?
No.
That sounds dangerous.
It does sound dangerous.
What if you have a stuffy nose?
That's my point. Apparently your body like freaks out and like unclogs your nose, which I can't handle.
It's a nightmare.
I need 2 CPAP machines.
Does Hitch stack them, or is it one
I need
for
one
each
for
nostril?
my left side of my mouth and one for my right side. Arlo's having a laugh over there.
He's broken arm.
All right.
This has been the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show We want to thank everybody for checking out the show on the Snow the Goalie YouTube channel, X, and Facebook. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. And you can find this wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music. We will be back a lot over the next few weeks, each and every Flyers home game. If you haven't done so, spread the word about the show. For Bundy, for intern Andrew, for intern Arlo, happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday, Arlo.
Happy birthday.
Everybody have a great rest of your night, and we will talk to all of you later this week here on the Press Row Show. Talk to all of you very, very soon.